Hello, beautiful people of South Africa, as well as the people of the world at large. Thank you so much for your encouraging, comments on the video that I posted regarding the secrets of making money. And I'm deeply moved and touched by the fact that most of you they would want to know more about the practical solutions under these difficult times. And I felt that there was also a compelling need from my side as well to share some of the success stories. Not that they just became successful from the onset, but we had to work hard on them up until we were satisfied with the results. It's not easy, it's not always easy, but if you have courage, I always say what stands between us being poor or between us being successful or rich is courage. If you don't have courage to do something, you will never achieve anything. The sense of pride that sometimes engulfs us prevent us from doing things that we should be doing. When we do or when we engage in informal trading, sometimes we will always say, hey, this is not for me, this is for so and so. And it is one of those things that makes us lose what we could on our own achieve by ourselves. Remember, around these times is very difficult. Not even around this time, it has been the case, always the case, even when we are having government who's willing to assist us, but it's still very difficult to secure security if you want to start business. So you must start on your own and put something forth so that people they can trust you with their monies. Because if you don't trust yourself with the little money that you have, it will become very difficult for any other person else other than you to trust you. And you must know that the vision that is in you, the idea that is in you, will never be trusted by any other person if yourself you don't trust it. To go to the bank and ask them to give you money, it's a nightmare sometimes. It's a very tedious exercise. The requirements they discourage you from the beginning before you can even start filling in those application forms. You are already discouraged because what they require it becomes too much for you. No one among us born with money except the few that they come from those rich families. But the rest of or the majority of our people they don't have money, so they have to work each and every day to make means end, to make something so that they can realize their future. Hence, one has been sharing some of these things that have assisted us to be where we are. Not because we want to show off of how much we've achieved, but we want to give you the truthness, the reality of how we have traveled this journey up until we have been able to achieve one, two, three. And achieving those things, it has been not an easy journey. It has been a very difficult path. But what we did not lose was the vision, the focus, and the desire to be successful. The aspiration of becoming, something, and that is what has been pushing us. After achieving so much with the first businesses that I started where I was selling food within the taxi rank. I decided to venture to another business which also became a success, but it was not an easy venture because I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I lost a lot of money again along the way. But this is what came to me because I always aspired to be in property business. Property business is one business, according to us, when we view it, we believe that it belongs to those elites, to those people who have money. But if sometimes you go down the way and try and understand how they have started, some of them, they've been fortunate because they are coming from rich families. They've managed to do far better or to achieve quicker than any other person because they had the resources available to them. So it was a matter of igniting the idea that they had in mind by just putting capital. But for us, it has been not like that. And I came up with a solution or an idea, which I always say, wow, it was a brilliant idea. I identified mostly that I would want to do development in the rural areas because it's very cost effective to build in those areas because you don't have to buy the land. The land is free sometimes. In other areas which are more semi-developed, obviously now you have to pay towards acquiring a piece of land. But in most or where it's deep rural areas, the land is still free. You have to meet the requirements of Ingonyama Trust, where we stay in KwaZulu Natal. And once we have satisfied those requirements, which are very, very low in terms of rates that we have to pay. So this is what I did. I identified certain schools around the area where I belong, and I said, let me acquire pieces of land around those schools so that I can start building 1, 2 rooms, 3 rooms. For the purposes of renting them out is either to teachers or students or learners. And if you look at this in terms of how much it will cost, you will then realize that it was achievable. And it is still achievable because you get the land for free. All what you need to do is to buy material so that you can construct the number of rooms that you want. And the income that you generate out of the rooms that we have built, as much as it's not going to be an income that is going to make you rich overnight, but the investment that we have made, it is the one that guarantees your income over a period of years to come. And if you identify pieces of land around schools, a number of schools, if you have saved enough capital, you can start the small scale of property development where it is so feasible for you to do it. When you make this development around these schools, you are guaranteed that you will get tenants. And mostly of your tenants will be reliable people because if you get teachers to rent at a very cheap scale, they won't hesitate because the idea behind or the secret behind that is that it is cost saving for them because it saves their cars from traveling to and fro. It also saves them from buying fuel. It also gives them an added advantage to arrive early in schools where they are teaching because they are residing around the vicinity. It also gives them another added advantage because if they want to do extra hours, they would not worry to go and sometimes cash taxis that are living, or they will be staying far away from the children that they want to give extra hours. So there's so much beauty around you designing that kind of a development with an idea of saying, I will not be only providing you a shelter, but I will also enhancing the other things that you as a school you would want to achieve. And once you do that, you make sure that you build proper structures, decent structures, obviously within your means. I'm telling you, you have a guaranteed income from those people who will be residing next to those structures that we have built. So the best thing that you need to do is to go to and consult with Amakosi from these areas, is to go and consult with Izinduna, is to go and consult with people that have spaces next to schools who haven't built. And this is the secret behind this, of how you then can make a lot of money out of something that people think it will take very slow to give you a reasonable income. If you have a number of those rental rooms around schools in different areas, you will then make more income than people that go and do other things. Because when you multiply the numbers of how much, it will depend. It goes area by area. In some areas, people, they pay more than 500 rand. In some areas, they pay up to 1,000. In some other areas, they pay even more than 1,000 rand. So if you multiply how much you will be making from each and every spot that we've identified and we have built on your own, without paying a bond, without paying for a piece of land that we have got to build that structure, you will then realize that we have made a lot of savings through the way you have structured your property business. And this is where I've started, because a bank will then see these monies coming on each and every month in, month out. And by doing so, you will develop your credit record. The bank will then be able to trust you with bigger things. So when you go to the bank and say, there are other banks who are willing now to find people who are staying in rural areas as far as property development is concerned. I wouldn't encourage that in the rural areas you go to the bank and ask for funding to do a household, a home. But I would encourage you, if you are going to do property development that is going to give you income, to go to the bank for a simple reason. The value of structures that we put in rural areas doesn't accumulate the same value like the structures that we put in semi-urban areas. So it would not be wise for you to take so much loan from the bank and invest in the rural area, whereas that property would not appreciate as the property that is in the urban areas. I would encourage you that start with your own resources that you have. I would also like to say to people that used to buy alcohol and cigarette, those things are prohibited right now. So maybe you can say, you can fund fun out of it and say, why don't I take the money that I used to go and buy booze and cigarette and just build something that is going to give me a permanent income in the long run. Because when you do that, you'll then see the difference of what you have made for yourself in your life. So therefore, I'm saying, I know that most of you are thinking about accumulating so much money or having so much money. When you listen to these people who are having a lot of money, they will tell you things that seems to be very impossible, practically impossible to achieve. You know why? It's either because they've been fortunate to acquire so much wealth, but they did not start from the grassroots. But I must say, most of the investment that I've done myself, other than identifying those pieces of land are next to the schools, some I've lost a lot of money, because when I developed this desire and the love of going now zooming into a bigger scale of property development, I didn't know much about property itself. You would buy, not realizing that the area that we are buying in is the area which doesn't attract other people to come and buy. And in that way, the property itself is going to be starting generating rates which will be eating from you. And when the property starts to eat from you without making income for you, you will lose the money that we have invested in that particular property. You will not only lose the money that we have invested in that property, you will also incur cost or expenses from the municipality where the property is. So in that way, it's a poor investment. And at some point, I find myself trapped in those kind of property investment, which you call it a bad buy or a poor buy, because you will see it and say, I want to do this, and then you go and buy in a space that is terrible. In some areas, you go and invest in properties that are found in auction. Some of properties that are found in auction might be a good buy. Some are very terrible buys, because it's very difficult to evict a person who reside within that particular structure. And people will want to fight you tooth and nail and say, no, never, we are not going to allow you to come and take our home away from us. So it becomes a bad buy. Hence, we have invested so much money. So you need then, once we have formed the base where I said you need to start, if you don't have money in the rural area, you won't go wrong, because your property there is freehold. It has got no rates, it has got no expenses. It's a matter of maintaining it after a year or 2 years. And if you have right tenants, like I'm talking about the teachers or student, they won't vandalize your property. They will look after your property. So you will have that kind of a relationship. So once we have had that kind of investment, you can go anywhere on each and every financial institution and say, this is my portfolio. This is my property portfolio, and this is what I've done on my own. And if you are able to demonstrate that, I can bet you my last cent, they will trust and believe that they can partner with you in making sure that you prosper in your investment. But you must be careful of the things that I've said to say some of the areas we need to look very, very hard. It doesn't matter whether it's cheap or not. I remember at some point with my wife, we bought one property from auction. The price was doubled. And we bought it in an area where we struggled to resell because we didn't want. We had to get tenants. Even when we had tenants, they were not doing well. So the returns on investment that we had put were very low. They did not guarantee any returns. And that was a bad buy for us. And not only that, we were not getting the returns on investment, but we were also accumulating more rates we were owing from the municipality. And it became a problem, a nightmare for us, up until we were able eventually to sell it less than the price that we had bought it. So I'm simply saying, property is one area sometimes where people are saying you will never go wrong. But you can easily go wrong, and things, they can just go wrong like that. And when they go wrong, you'll be left in debts. And when we are left in debts, it's very difficult for you to come out of that situation, because some of those properties will have so much that they owe bonds and other things. So I'm saying to you, it's better to start small with the little resources that you have, other than to shoot high up there. So guys, because I know most of you have little pieces of lands, it's either at your home or next to your neighbor or somewhere, please utilize those pieces of land. Just build those 1 rooms, 2 rooms. Start making rentals out of that. I am telling you, you will never go wrong. The biggest mistake on my last point that I want you not to do, don't just use the money that you collect out of your business venture. Try and bank that money, because that is the only way you can be able to prove to me, to the other person, that you really mean business. Because I will then go through your credit record, I will go through your banking system, and then it's only when I will be satisfied as an investor to say, really, you mean business. I thank you.